Hello, fellow homebrewers. JP here, and I want to introduce to you the brand new Brewbuilt X1 Conical Series available at More Beer. More Beer sells the highest standard in homebrewing equipment, and the Brewbuilt Conicals are just that. They're made from mirror-polished 304 stainless steel, and they come with loads of features that you and I have been looking for. They have a full 2-inch bottom dump valve, which will eliminate your clogging issues, while the sturdy base includes 4 reinforced legs, just like those big Pro tanks do. More Beer also carries the Brewbuilt line of options and add-ons like casters, pressure kits, and even external glycol chillers. So you can find out more about the new Brewbuilt X1 Conical Unitanks by going over to morebeer.com for detailed videos on the entire line of Brewbuilt Conicals. You can trust Brewbuilt with your next fermentation, and you can trust More Beer to find the right conical for you. Brewbuilt at morebeer.com.
Welcome to the session, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Justin Crosley. I'm your host today, and I am on the road for the first time in a long time. I'm taking the show on the road down to San Diego. It's my Brewing Network On the Road series. The session heads to HomebrewCon in San Diego, which I'm super excited about, that it's back in San Diego, for example, because it's my state, and I can get to it, and I can drive my RV there. But also because our old friend, everybody's old friend, Beardy is back on the show with me.
Hi, Justin.
Hi, Beardy. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I pried you away from your wife and baby, which I probably shouldn't have done.
Well, I mean, now that Annabelle is 1,
yeah,
Candy has started looking for babysitters, and so she called you. And so now I'm glad that she gets some rest.
Right. Yeah, now that your kid's all grown up and 1.
Yeah. With a lot of opinions and emotions.
Right.
That I don't understand. It's great.
Yeah, as babies do. Well, I'm happy to have you. We are on a 6-stop tour, I think it is, from Northern California down to, like I said, San Diego. And along the way, we're going to stop at several different breweries. And our first one, we're getting 2 breweries in 1. But we're at my good friend Brendan's brewery, Liquid Gravity, in San Luis Obispo. Brendan, thanks for having us.
Of course. Yeah. Anytime, Justin.
I know. That's why I always come here. Plus my RV fits out
front. Exactly.
So, I mean, I tried to look for other ones, but it wouldn't fit anywhere. So I was like, Brendan will have me.
And by any time, you're good for another week.
Right.
Well, maybe not any time.
Okay.
But tonight for sure.
Okay, cool. Because I did already run an extension cord across the street to the...
Of course you did. Off my neighbor's lot, hopefully.
Yeah, Brendan Goff, as you know from the show and from such accolades as Pale from the Crypt, winning medals in the World Beer Cup or GABF or both, I forget.
Both, yeah.
It is both, right?
Yeah, we got a bronze in American Pale Ale at GABF last year and just got a silver at World.
Amazing.
Nice.
So pretty awesome. Yeah.
And it's my favorite Pale Ale. It is, not just because you're my friend, but you know that. Every time I come here, I steal a keg, and I steal it from my own tap room too. If there's extra, I'm taking that home with me.
Yeah, it's certainly a style that's near and dear to my heart. And I think when I was home brewing, it was probably half of the batches I made were American Pale Ale. It was really something that I worked on cinching down as a home brewer, and now as a professional brewer, something that I've had some success with in competition, and it's really that same beer that's kind of just morphed and from different breweries. It's the recipes changed a little bit to kind of match the system, but the spirit of that beer sort of remains the same from when it was my homebrew back in the day.
Well, and you even have I think I saw a douchey license plate frame on your truck out there too.
I didn't put that on.
What? What does it say though?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it says I'm the king of pale ale or something like that.
So I was unloading beer in Orchid the other day, and I flipped up my tailgate, And I have San Francisco Giants play tags that
I saw that on the front. Yeah.
Yeah. And I flipped up the tailgate and I looked down. I was like, what the fuck is that? It said King of the Pale Ale. And I'm like, I mean, listen, you ain't wrong. Okay. I'm just saying I didn't put
The whole neighborhood doesn't need to know about it.
So I got back home and, this guy who, a friend of mine who rents the front unit of our duplex, runs Bottlecraft here in Slow.
Nice.
Sean, he's like, oh, you saw it. He's like, I thought it'd take you at least a week. So yeah,
that's funny. So you took it back off, put your Giants back on?
I'm going to. Yes. Here's the thing. It is funny. It is funny, but it's only funny if you can explain that your friend did it to you without you knowing. It's much less funny if you're the guy that put that on your own truck.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Or you get pulled over.
Yeah.
Not funny.
Also true.
That's bad. Yeah,
That's
just
also
like
true.
putting the pot leaf in your back window.
Yeah.
I guess that doesn't matter anymore, but it used to. Also with us today, Max Montgomery from There Does Not Exist, also here in Slow, right?
I'm here. Yeah, we're the brewery's probably as the crow flies are I don't know, 3/4 of a mile away or something like that, if that. So yeah, I'm here. Happy to be here.
So Max, I wanted to have you guys here together because I knew how close you were, and because I like the whole brewing scene here. So I just thought it'd be fun to have Brendan on and to talk with you with us, but.
Oh, yeah.
I also met you before you were a professional brewer. You were Matt Brynildson from Firestone, of course. You were his neighbor, basically.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I think I was visiting once, and I met you then.
I think it was at his wedding, maybe.
Okay.
Did we sit at the same table?
Probably, and hung out there.
Oh, yeah, he put all the degenerates at one table.
Exactly, yeah. We knew which table we were at.
Yeah. He's like, put them on the other side of that wall.
That's right,
there.
yeah.
Did you MC his wedding?
He didn't ask. I'm actually surprised he even let me come.
Yeah.
But, I didn't MC it, no. But, You were some sort of gnarly homebrewer at the time too. Didn't he find you because he saw your garage one day and wanted to know what the hell was happening?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. So I was really into homebrewing. Me and Brendan, that's kind of how we met. Was through homebrewing when Brendan was working at the homebrew shop. And yeah, it was like a lot of people say, it was a perfect cross section of art and science, and it just struck a chord with me. So I got really into it. And Matt, at some point, of course, I knew who Matt was. He had no idea who I was. My neighbor actually said, hey, do you know that some guy from Firestone, he'd see me out there brewing. And he's like, some guy from Firestone owns a house next door to you.
Oh, right.
I know.
Oh, really? That's cool. I didn't know that. I'll have to keep an eye peeled.
Yeah.
And then a couple days later, I'm like out in the garage, brewing. And like I see Brynildson drive by. I'm like, no fucking way.
Some guy from Firestone.
Oh, God. And he like kind of looked over and saw me. And I'm like, okay, whoa, crazy.
Yeah.
And then he comes walking up a couple minutes later, and we started talking about brewing and, of course, about being neighbors and whatnot.
Sure.
And then he stuck it out all day and brewed with me the
No kidding.
entire day. Yeah.
That's
the most nerve-wracking homebrew I've ever made, as you can imagine.
Every step you're like,
Brynildson shows up.
am I doing this right?
Yeah,
That's funny.
It's funny. I've been doing it a long time, and like it was like, is this okay?
Yeah.
Every time, how would you do this? But the funniest part about it, like looking back now, is he's such an inquisitive dude that he was way more interested in what I was doing.
Right.
Because I think he was just like, homebrewers are always on like kind of the forefront of stuff because of the economy of scale of making beer in small batches. Right. So he was like, wait, what are you stirring the whirlpool like that? Like stuff like that. And he was like, oh, interesting. And I'm thinking like, oh, this guy thinks I'm an idiot.
Hold on.
Geez.
I'm going to interject here because what probably caught his eye is the dopest homebrew rig I've ever seen in my entire life.
Okay.
What
was it? Just like,
I think it went through many iterations over the years, but I think at that time it was one of the More Beer homebrew kits, I think.
Okay.
That I had bought. I think
you had the one barrel, flat system, it had the pumps and the one barrel.
Yeah, sounds like a More Beer.
Was that conical jacketed?
No.
But
it
you put it in a fridge. Okay, that's right.
Yeah, I had like I can't remember what they call those now, but you put it in an upright freezer to control temp.
Yeah. So you're doing everything right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it looks like it kind of looks like a brewery. So
it looks like a little brewery.
Yeah. We had like barrels in the garage. I had basically like commandeered the entire garage of my house into a brewery. We had, like, there was like sour beer projects. There were some bourbon barrels in there. It was like getting.
So that's what caught Matt's eye.
Yeah,
if he had rolled by my house and saw the igloo cooler on a ladder, you know,
you're like speed this
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. That's.
Did you think you were going to be a pro brewer at that time, or was it truly just a hobby?
It was just a hobby, but I think the seed had been planted enough that I was like, you know, I guess I was just kind of struggling with like, I would love to be a pro brewer, but how do I even, you know, like, I think a lot of people feel the same way. It's like, how do you even make that next step kind of thing?
Yeah.
Well, first you move in next to Matt.
Yeah. So I looked at every person that owned every house in Slow, and I bought right next to it. No, I'm just kidding.
And then you're like, oh, is that Matt? I didn't know.
That's why my question is, how long did you wait before bumping into him?
He bumped into me, so that's what was so funny about it. It's like, it was funny because it's actually his girlfriend at the time, which is crazy to think about now because I've known him forever. But his girlfriend at the time, his now wife Allison. You know, I think he came over and brewed, and we kind of hit it off. We had like similar taste in music. Also, we found out.
You look like you have his taste in music.
Yeah, for sure. We probably like, oh, you been at that Fish show? I was like, dude, I was there too.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we just kind of hit it off brewing, and I think we made plans maybe to barbecue or something like the next weekend, or maybe this was on like a Friday and something or other. And then my girlfriend at the time, Paige, and his girlfriend, they hit it off. So it was kind of like, it just became really easy to be neighbors because me and Matt had a lot to talk about, of course.
Yeah.
And it was actually like, those were some of the fondest years of like, I don't know if you guys have ever had like a really cool neighbor.
Yeah.
Like, there's almost nothing more rad than that.
Just your friends right there all the time.
Yeah.
I haven't had that since I was in the 5th grade, I think. I was that really cool neighbor that was my best friend.
My neighbor has a super cool neighbor, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Your neighbor has a cool neighbor. Yeah.
I don't know what it's like for him, but I imagine it's amazing.
It must be great.
He's real lucky.
Yeah.
But didn't you end up going to work for Matt at some point too?
Yeah, so that was kind of how the whole thing evolved, I guess. So I was like, how do I make my way into this? And I think, you know, over probably a couple late nights and a lot of beers, I kind of confided in him that I was like, I kind of want to do this. I just don't really know how. And I always like laugh at this story now because being the guy that Matt is, I think I maybe dropped like I'm thinking about going to the Siebel thing. And he was like, I went to Siebel too.
Yeah.
You know, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Come to find out that's totally fucking bullshit because he's like a savant, you know? But at the time it was like exactly what I needed to hear to go like, well, you know, if he can do it, anybody can do it. That's right. You know, I'm signing up.
Yeah. Sounded good.
He's a hop chemist before.
He
really,
probably got
right. I mean, he's an organic chemist, you know, it's like, come on, dude. I was like,
he also gets a commission from Siebel every time he says that to somebody.
Right. Yeah, totally. So yeah, anyways, the pep talk was what I needed to get, just to, I guess, make the jump, as some would say. And
what were you doing? What was your job at the time?
I was kind of like a graphic designer. So I did graphic design and then motion graphics and videos for websites.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you do the graphic design on your products now?
I don't draw the art, but I assemble everything we've ever done in terms of like the design and the layout and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna come back to that later.
Sure.
We're gonna talk about the pluses and the minuses of your amazing cans.
Okay.
As a retail establishment.
Right.
Is what we're gonna do.
You get the impulse buy, and then people are like, "This beer sucks."
No, not at all.
No, I know where you're going with this. I think
you do. I think you probably do. It's totally. We'll get to it. Okay, so you go to Siebel.
Yeah. Go to Siebel. Go to Doman's Academy in Germany. I did I think it's called the Master Brewers program through Siebel. So it was half time in Chicago, half outside of Munich.
Okay.
And then I came back, and I didn't really know, like, it wasn't like a spoken thing. Like, I get to work at Firestone when I get back or anything like that. It was I kind of had the assumption like, I'll move back and maybe Matt can help find me a job wherever the job is, kind of thing. I had intention of like, you know, I'll move where the job takes me.
Did you like sit on your porch waiting for Matt to come home when you got back? Just so he'd know you were back.
I think I like got back and then like gave it a day and then called him and he didn't answer. And I was like, oh god, this guy, the bait and switch. Jeez.
Got his commission and
You
not
should
answering the
totally
phone.
go to Seawall.
Yeah, totally.
Change number.
Actually, I now that I'm really, it's been a long time since I thought about this, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think at one time he was like, how much does Siebel cost? And he's like, oh, I could teach you in my garage. We could set up a little classroom. I'll do it for half price or something like that. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I got back and I think just like the planets aligned to where probably unfortunately they either had to lay someone off or someone left or something. So
Sure.
This position opened up at Firestone. It wasn't actually a brewing position. It was sort of like a warehousing admin type thing. So originally I started work doing that, and then I think I worked there for 2 weeks doing that, and then I just moved into the brewery and started in the cellar, learning under Jason Pond in the cellar.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
That's not a bad start.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, that was like, Brendan can speak a lot to this too. Like that era of Firestone, in my mind at least, and probably because I lived through it, was the gold standard. I mean, it's like we were working there through this crazy exponential growth, multiple expansions of brewing equipment and brewing equipment technology. So you kind of like, you got to learn grassroots, like on a essentially manual brewery.
Yep.
And then
when you started, it was still the JV 50, right?
Yeah, manual. I mean, essentially pneumatic valve, but manual.
Yeah, a couple of pneumatic valves to like open the work pathway.
Yeah, but you were up on the stairs a million times. Like,
yeah, when you're mashing in, is like, a butterfly valve cracked it, 45 degrees to control how much hot water was going in and what the temperature was.
Right.
Yeah.
So really,
and it was like, it was shocking because in Siebel they just teach you like all the like new hot technology shit, So then it was like, we were going like, this place is making, at that time, I mean, it was a lot of beer, but like not for Firestone, I think it was like, we're making like 120,000 barrels of beer a year. And I'm like, what do you mean I got to put this thing at a 33 degree angle? Like, that doesn't sound very precise.
Seems like we're past this by now.
Little gate valve blending for cold. I think they were both butterflies, I think.
Yeah.
Which is even trickier.
Totally crazy to think about now, right?
But a great place to learn, you're saying, because you got the whole spectrum at that time.
Oh, it was perfect. It was like learn on the manual system and learn the theory, right?
Okay.
And then by the time I left, it was fully automated 250 barrel brew house with 1,500 barrel fermenters. So it was like, So, and it was also like the perfect training ground, I think, for brewers at the time. After I had been there for a few years, it was like new guys starting. I'm like, all right, train you up in the manual cellar. This is when I was in the cellar heavy. So I was like, I'll train you up in the manual cellar, and then we'll kind of step our way through. So yeah, we had a full manual. The original cellar that when that facility was built was full manual. And then I think the second phase was, it wasn't automation, but there was a pipe vents with swing links, so you weren't dragging hose out there and everything. And then the final expansion at that time of the cellar was full automation with automated valve block and everything. So you didn't have to walk to the tank when you were knocking out to it. It calculated every gallon of beer in the line or push water in the line at that time, and it would just automatically cut to the tanks.
Just everything.
Yeah. So it's like you didn't have to go out
and I
there.
brewed on that system at least twice. So
Yeah.
We get it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I brewed on the
bells and
manual
whistles.
and the automated.
I will say, I remember when we switched from the old manual brew house to the automated one. And, I always remember like mashing in, it was like, I'm going to hit that mash temp, like, right on the button. And I watched this automated system come in and like, it's off by like a half a degree.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Totally.
like, come on, bro.
The robots can't do
Get
it
your
yet.
stuff together.
Yeah.
All the good brewers lost sleep over the manual system.
Yeah.
Like if you, no offense, but not to throw shade, I guess. But if you came into a 250 barrel automated brewery, like you're not learning anything.
Right. Yeah. That makes
You
sense.
don't know the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to go through it.
Yeah. Got to. Yeah.
All right. Before we go further, we've got one of Liquid Gravity's beers in our glass, which I believe is called Fodello.
Yeah.
Tell us about this beer.
Or Foxdello, if you're ordering it at our bar. That seems to be what I hear a lot.
Is it spelled wrong?
FAUX.
Okay. Oh, right.
DELO.
Yeah.
I'll have the Foxdello.
Yes. All like more than Fodello.
Yeah.
We get that.
That's amazing.
But it's a Mexican lager. Got a little bit of flaked maize in there. Mexican
What's
lager.
maize? No, I'm just kidding.
Is that
it's
like corn?
like a labyrinth.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. I've been in one of those. one time,
Just
yeah.
less fancy,
Right. A
word.
bit more flaky.
But yeah, a little more. It's like a flaky labyrinth.
Okay.
basically.
Yeah,
It's very seasonal.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mexican lager yeast from BSI. I'd like to try like this recipe with, because Augustiner is kind of our house lager yeast.
Okay.
When we kind of had the concept for this beer, and it's, the label has it is inspired by the Modelo label. Modelo has like the lions on the side, and it's like in gold and blue, and so we kind of did green, but ours has like cats instead of lions.
Nice.
It has a little silhouette of the cats.
Yeah.
But I'd be interesting to try this with that Augustiner yeast, because I do feel like the Mexican lager yeast does have more contribution. It does, I don't know if it's necessarily an ester thing, or it might be a little bit of that corn kind of playing with some of the sulfur, the type of sulfur that this yeast puts off. But I think the Augustiner yeast is cleaner to me.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I mean, we were really going for that, kind of signature Mexican lager characteristic. But I don't know that I've ever had a fresh Modelo.
Yeah.
I think by the time it gets here, like I have this next to that, I'm like, oh my God, like ours just tastes fresh and,
Sure.
More vibrant. And by the time most of those beers get over here from, those mass produced Mexican lagers, by the time they get here, they're pretty roached out.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say what the authentic character is.
Sure.
But I'd like to take that kind of Mexican lager grain bill and actually just use our kind of house lager yeast and see what it does.
Try it out. You have your own brewery.
Yeah. Oh shit! I should do that. That's a great idea.
I love this beer.
You could
It's
also
good, though,
write
yeah.
off a trip to Puerto Rico or somewhere and
That-
just to
yeah,
taste
see?
fresher
I like this guy.
Modelo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
There was-
ideas,
Let's go.
man.
In my Siebel class, there was like 10 dudes from Grupo Modelo.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, and
I
it was like probably the smartest dude. Like there was no reason they even needed to be there, which was kind of funny. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
there was like I always laugh because at the little beer stube thing that they have for after class, I guess at Siebel, they have all this bitchin' beer. It's like because they have all these hookups, right? From all these teachers that come in. So, and when we had like all kinds of cool Goose Island beers at the time, there was like Zombie Dust on draft, and those guys shipped in Modelo cases,
Really?
and they would only drink that after class.
Really?
Yeah, it was like company man, you know what I mean? I think about that all the time.
That's
It was also all paid for by Modelo,
Totally,
like their
yeah.
their classes, right? Like you had to pay
That's
for
fair.
that class,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they were drinking Modelo.
Would
Yeah.
they wouldn't touch anything else?
No, we offered them like I was like, oh, you got to try this crazy IPA, Like they're like, no, we're good.
They had some zombie dust back at the hotel rooms,
Yeah, or
where there were no cameras,
Yeah.
They were probably like driving every weekend out to Three Floyds and just like getting it wicked out there,
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, let's do this. I think it's a good time to take a break, and then we're going to get some of There Does Not Exist in our glass and find out a little bit more about where you went after Firestone and about your beer. Hang in there. You're listening to The Session on the Road, the summer series with Beardy, the world-famous Beardy.
World famous. You heard it here first, folks.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Session. We are hanging out at Liquid Gravity Brewing Company, and we're talking to There Does Not Exist Brewing. Max Montgomery. Brendan's here with us, of course, from Liquid Gravity, and we just had his wonderful Mexican lager. And now in our glass from Max is a Helles, like a proper Munich Helles. Helles is what it tastes like to me. And you were just telling us that you went to Siebel and got to train in Germany anyway, so I'm not surprised that this tastes like a proper German Helles. Tell me about
Thanks.
the beer.
Yeah, it's our Helles. It's one of the more popular beers that we do.
Well, hold
now.
on. I partied in Mexico a couple times, so mine tastes
So
not
yours
yeah,
is
yeah,
also
yeah.
original. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a very traditional Munich style Helles.
Yeah.
Single decoction. We have a German brew house that we bought used, so it's multiple step infusion mashing, single decoction, German barley, Weyermann, extra pale Pilsner malt, boiled, of course, in the decoction, and then Hallertau middle fruit and a little bit of Saaz.
Okay. Nice.
Is there a reason behind the single decoction and doing multi-step?
Yes,
With
I'm not like I don't claim to be an expert in decoction, but the people that I look up to that do this kind of mashing seem to have settled on. We call it we refer to it as like a mash out decoction. So basically, like we mash in this beer at 50 degrees Celsius, and then we ramp up to a rest at 60, and then we rest at 63, then we rest at 68, then we rest at 72, and then we transfer 3/4 of the mash over to the lauter tun and boil the last quarter of the mash. So it's probably closer to a third. So we do like 66% pump over and then
to
boil
get
the last
two mash
third.
out with that last one.
Yeah, and then by the time you mix in that boiling mash, you have essentially mashed out the entire mash.
So it's been a while since I did the Celsius thing. Is that the same like 145, 155?
I do not speak in Fahrenheit. This is not
possible. This is not possible.
No, this is, I think, a funny story, but like circling all the way back to Firestone, one of the things that made it so hard to learn was that all the brew house hot side operations were in Celsius, and all the fermentation temperatures, I think, were in Fahrenheit.
Okay.
And it drove me like insane.
Yeah.
And now I have my own brew, and I did it the same way.
You did, because that's how you learned it.
Yeah, I know now. So I'm like, oh, you want to talk 68 Fahrenheit fermentation for IPA? Yeah, all day long.
Well, and I left after leaving Firestone, going to start to brew with mash temperatures on Fahrenheit stuff. I'm like, I don't like what it, I'm constantly like looking at the convert, and now I'm far enough removed now where I'm like, are those the same? Because the Firestone mash program was sort of a traditional German steps as far as temperature, and that was like those steps on basically everything.
Yeah, so it's basically like it's a protein rest, and then it's like a really low end beta amylase rest, a little higher up, and then it's like 68, sort of that on the cusp, and then 72C is like middle. Well, it's two things. It's middle of the road, I think, peak alpha amylase activity, and then also the Germans talk a little bit about like glycoproteins for foam stability at that rest, and then mash out to 75.
Now I'm having flashbacks because what I remember. I don't want to, get too far into trade secrets here, but
everyone
that's
wants trade secrets.
I think the 50-degree thing was the thing that threw me, because I'm like, I don't remember doing that at Firestone.
No,
because that's like, the protein rest. That's the
to be honest, it's like a little hocusy pocusy, but like we use extra pale Weyermann Pilsner malt, so there's no need to do a protein rest. But like, I read 2 German brewing books on Helles, and like everything, and these are probably dated for today. Today is like brewing acumen or whatever.
Kunza.
Yeah, and it's like we rest for 30 minutes at 50C, which is low, really low. And I think it's like one of those things that like we made the beer the first time and we're like, whoa, this beer's like,
do that
this
again.
Beer's all right.
Yeah.
And now I'm like afraid to change it.
Yeah.
Because I think the first rest that I remember was like 62. Does that sound familiar?
62 or 63. I think for like Firestone, to go with trade secrets, but I think it was 63.
Matt's giving them all away already.
Right, your NDA must be over by now.
Right. I'm going to jail tomorrow. I think it was 63, 68, 75 or 76 or something like that.
Yeah. So that's what when I heard your program, I'm like, oh man, I'm like digging back through the weeds here. I'm like, that doesn't. Yeah. Okay. So 50 is the protein. 60 is that really low alpha temp.
Yeah, it's
like or beta temp.
Beta. It's on the cusp between protein and beta.
Yeah,
but like 50 is real.
Yeah. Okay.
We also use. I guess I'm not telling the whole story. We also use the Weyermann. It's a blend of the extra pale Pilsner malt and bark pills. That kind of like more heritage, kind of old world grain. Mm-hmm. And I think Eric Toft is like one of my brewing heroes from Schoenraumer.
Yeah,
and he's always preaching like, he's like, let the maltsters make the malt. Let me do the mashing. Like, don't take care of all that for me. He likes like under modified malts. Yeah. I want to take care of that in the brew house. So we don't have access to all the awesome, like, continental malts that he has. So like we try and cut in as much of that bark with the extra pale Weyermann pills to kind of simulate a slightly modified malt profile.
Some of your control.
Will you talk a little bit about your brew house, just because I love it? It's an old is it from the 60s or 80s?
No. It's from like 93.
Oh, okay.
1993.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
But it's a Casper Scholes.
Yeah. It looks like it. So
Brendan's like, because it looks like shit.
no, it's amazing. No, it's just, you got, listen,
Well,
stuff from,
now it looks a little better.
stuff from the 80s, 90s, like the technology, part wasn't there yet. And so there's some really cool kind of analog looking controls on his brew house. Not the 60s. I'm thinking, like, I remember seeing Bill's out at Bierstadt. That's an old, like, 60s.
Yeah.
That's,
totally.
I mean, that stuff looks almost archaic. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Totally.
But Max's brew house is yes, much more modern than that, but it's like before things got like digital at all.
Sure.
And so there's some, and you guys obviously have modern temperature readouts and that stuff, but there's there's like a little panel of some sort that has
it's like hard to, so it's a 1993 vintage Casper Scholes brew house, which was made in Bamberg, Germany.
Okay.
Casper Scholes, I think I always get this number wrong, but it's something ludicrous. I think they've been making brewing equipment for 300 years or something like that. It's like, we bought it used from Atwater Brewing Company in Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah.
And I remember when I went and looked at it, I called Casper Scholes and finally got on the phone with like one of their brewmasters and was like, "Oh man, I'm looking at this brew house. Just wanted to see if you guys be able to support it." And the guy laughed. And he's like, "We have been making brew houses for 300 years. Why would we not support one from the 90s? This makes no sense to me."
Oh my God.
It was like, he like shit talked to me.
He's like, 1890 or 1990. Yes, we are good.
Like, and it didn't matter either way.
We
That's
still
amazing.
Yeah. So we ended up, kind of, I felt pretty lucky to get it because from my time in Germany through the Seawell program, I was familiar with that brand, and you don't see it for sale domestically that often.
Okay.
So I just kind of right time, right place. I saw it used for sale. I'm like, oh shit, that's pretty rad. It warranted going to look at it. They were in this sort of changing state of their brewery, and I found them at the right cross section of like, I think they were asking more, but they needed it gone, and I had the ability to like take it immediately, kind of thing. So I think the way, the long and short of it, I think, is like talk to the guy, and he's like, I'm like, I'd love to offer you more, but I can only give you X amount. And he was like, oh, thanks, but no thanks. I'm like, no problem, dude. Totally get it. Let me know if something changes. And it was like, well, you could have it out of here in 2 weeks. I might sell it for that much.
That'll
like,
change.
Let me see what I can do.
Yeah.
So I literally Googled like Detroit Rigging Company and just started at the top and called every person. And I found this peach of a guy, this really old Detroit native guy.
Yeah.
It's like everyone was like, thank you for calling Alpha Rigging Solutions. How can I help you? And then I finally get down to this one guy. Hello?
That's my guy.
And I'm like, hey, is this Bulldog On-Site Solutions? He's like, yeah. How can I help you? I'm like, well, I gave him the whole spiel, and he goes, shit, man, I'm right around the corner from there right now. I'll go take a look at it.
Wow.
And he calls me back like 5 minutes later. He goes, oh, yeah, easy. When do you want it out of there? I was like, that's the pinch. How about like 2 weeks from now? He goes, yeah, I'll see you there.
You're kidding me.
No. And like that was like, it was like, yeah, I'll see you there. I'm like, cool, man. You want
which day?
Right. You want a deposit or anything? Like, how do I solidify this? He goes, nah, you sound like you're good for it.
I love this guy.
I'm not shitting you, dude. This guy was his name was Rick. I'm trying to remember his last name because the guy
Legend was his last name.
People say that word around. This dude is a legend. And I remember we were flying out there with my buddy, and I had like trucks scheduled to come pick the thing up. He was going to have it out on this date. It's it's not in downtown Detroit, but it's like on a busy street, and
not boarded up yet.
And I was like going, I just remember flying out going like, he's not going to be there. This is the stupidest thing I have ever done in my life. Oh my God, what am I doing? And like, so like we fly in that night, I'm supposed to meet him there at 6 a.m. to like start match marking it and pulling this thing apart. Cause it had been in there. They bought it new. So it had been in there for like 20 odd years,
Okay. Yeah.
So I show up, I'm like all rip roaring to go and get there 6 a.m. And I had just flown to, from California to Detroit. And he had obviously got there before me. And the first thing out of his mouth was like, What, are you just going to sleep all day?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good, dude. I'm like, this is the perfect.
He brought his Uncle Tony's and overalls. He's ready to help.
Yeah, it was Rick. It was another guy. I can't remember his name. And then Rick's helper's name was Beebs.
Yeah, of course it was.
Yeah. So it was like all day. We were like, me and my buddy that was helping me was doing some other stuff. And you just hear from across the brewery, Beebs. Grab me a wrench. Like stuff like that. He's like, okay, Rick. That kind of thing.
And they nailed it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, those guys were studs, man. They took it out. And the other like end to that sort of long story that I think is super funny is I was like, I had no one to offload it in California yet.
Okay.
But I knew it was going to take about 2 weeks to get there. So I'm like, I'll find somebody local that can help me out. And I kind of made the joke like, hey, Rick, man, I'll fly you guys out. You want to help me unload this thing? And he goes, in California? Fuck no.
Yeah, like, I can do anything but that.
Yeah. He just had no interest, I was like, I don't want to go to California. No, man.
Jay, I think we need to make a trip to Detroit. I want to go hang out with this guy.
I still got his
Let's
number,
go.
dude. I swear to God.
The whole
If I ever
show.
go back there, he's the first person
Let's
I call.
go.
Yeah, it's the whole show.
I think I'll hit him with hey, Rick, you going to sleep all day?
Yeah. Well, the
Rick
beer
Bunting.
is
That was his name.
fantastic.
Thank you.
The hell,
Yeah.
what size system is it? Just got
It's a
curious.
25 hectoliter.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, we brew slightly high gravity, pretty much everything we do. But we knock out in the neighborhood 22, 23 barrels per turn.
And I'm trying to remember. I think this is like, because those German brew houses are like you mash in the boil kettle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
it's a mash boil kettle, dedicated
Which
lauter
is-
ton, dedicated whirlpool,
Which
which
is
is awesome, except for throughput. It can be, it's
Right.
like, we can't mash in the second turn until the first one's in the whirlpool. So it makes for a long brew day, but,
Okay.
at the expense of what, I don't know.
But yeah, that was one of the things I remember, seeing in often in these multi-vessel German brew houses is you mash in the boil kettle. Because most of the North American systems you see, or ones that are built in China that are kind of, overseen by American companies, it's almost always, combo. If you're going to go, combo, it's combo mash louder.
Yeah.
Right. Where you mash in on the screens and, and then, maybe you piece out the whirlpool, or if you want to do steps and be able to, you get a mash mixer like with Firestone, like the old JV system,
Right.
where you have a mash mixer. It's got a paddle in the bottom. It's got jackets so you can run through your steps, but it's that's the separate vessel. And then you would combo like the boil kettle whirlpool or something. But you would pump the entire mash to louder, and either have 4 vessels or combo the boil kettle whirlpool.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things that really struck me on German systems. I said, like, oh, they always like, that's their thing. They mash in the boil kettle, and that's often how the
Efficiency.
maximum
efficient.
Yeah. It's due to geometry. Because like a mash mixer and a boiling kettle have nearly identical tank geometry, but like they would never combo a kettle and a whirlpool because kettles and whirlpools are not geometry is opposite almost.
I see. Okay.
It's true. Yeah.
But Germans have it figured out, man. I don't know.
I don't know why.
I love those guys.
But we just refuse to like accept that they're right.
Well, it's English, so that's like the whole thing. I think like mashing on screens is of English origin, single infusion mashing on screens, and then so you got. I think the original craft beer movement in the States was inspired by English beers.
Yeah, but if I'm just saying, if there's a country that like has figured it out already,
right. And before the English, really, let's be honest.
They're still servicing brew houses from the 1860s.
I love that. That's one of my favorite. You're not the first brewer who said that to me about an old system. Yeah. I think Anderson Valley has an old German system that's even older than yours. And same thing, they call and they're like, oh, yeah, let me just get out the binder. We'll find, oh, yeah, your system number 11555777799.
Yeah.
And they know everything about that system at Anderson Valley still, and they will still help them out.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, it had obviously, like, I would say the biggest downside when we bought it was not a lot of preventative maintenance had been done over the years. So it was a little bit of fixing up a hot rod kind of thing. We got it back to California, and then I had to tear the whole steam side of it apart. I'm a pretty handy guy, so I wasn't intimidated by that project.
Sure.
But I remember a couple times, like, it was like, oh, this brand valve for like the slide gate for the Gristin that was all shot. So I called up Casper Scholz and I'm like, Yeah, what are you using on a modern brew house? If I was buying one today, what valve is that? Same valve.
Really?
Same company.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
great.
I'm like, oh, yeah, sweet. And he was like, and I'm like, yeah, I think it's kind of like all shot. I think I need to replace it. And he was like, I can get you any piece of that valve you want. You just tell me what's actually wrong with it, not that it's just broken. I'm like, oh, all right.
This is
Can't do it.
I'm going to go off on a slight tangent, but like they're doing a bunch of construction in front of the Hop Grenade right now, and it was supposed to be done 2 months ago. They're digging up the street and putting in a sidewalk, and they have to. The aesthetic has to be the same.
Uh-huh.
And they originally put in the bricks for this sidewalk in the 90s, and that brick manufacturer is gone. So the whole project is delayed because they can't find a red fucking brick to put down that matches the other brick. And you...
Wait, so the town waited until the sidewalk was gone
Well, that was my first
to
question.
figure out.
That was my first
Wait
question.
a second.
Thank you.
Right.
So anyhow, it fascinates me about maybe not just the Germans, but the old world that like
Right.
it's not. They laugh at us when we're like, "Well, what do you mean? You have that bearing? It's a tiny little bearing that I need in this valve." And they're like, "Yeah, how many do you need?"
Yeah.
And we can't find a red brick in the
Can't
city.
you just take the like Bayer swatch into the brick maker and be like, make me this brick?
All questions I've asked. No. You know why? Because California. That's why.
Right.
Throw a little bit of Beardy's,
Yeah.
throw some like whiskers in there and get the
Yeah.
right shade, the
Yeah.
right tone.
Yeah. All right. I want to talk a little bit of branding and marketing with you.
Sure. Can do.
Beardy wants to know what the fuck "there does not exist" means.
I don't know. I have no idea.
There does not exist an answer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, so I guess I try not to make this too long of a story, like all my stories, but it started. So "there does not exist" is a mathematical term, or I should say, the symbol we use to represent the brand is a mathematical interpretation of "there does not exist."
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, that was my next question. So I see the logo on the cans and on your hat. So
Yeah,
okay.
it's kind of an unforgettable, or I think it's unforgettable because I see it in my nightmares. But yeah, it's a backwards E with a slash through it.
It's iconic, honestly. I don't want to, I'll let you tell the story, but from my perspective, I remember Max telling me the name. I'm like, oh man, I don't know. And Max, even back to me, was like, I kind of don't know either. And I'm like, yeah, really, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, but it's also a lot like, when if you have a child, don't ever tell the people like what you're naming that kid. It's like, it's a terrible name.
Right.
But once the brewery exists and they have the beer and there's, they get an idea of what the brand is. And once the whole picture's there, it's because now it's like, it's TDNE, right? Like people like nobody goes, hey, let's go to "there does not exist."
Right.
And I think that, to me, the most brilliant thing in all of that and everything that you did was it's that iconic E, man, that backwards E with the slash through it. It's rad. And people like, I see your gear all over just because like, it's like the old Etnies E, it's just
totally.
that like, it's simple and it's like one letter. I was stupid and had, 2 words and I've tried to put L's and G's together to make them as cool as Max. I'm like, fuck, I gotta write my whole brewery out every time. But no, it is. I think that, but I remember that moment where it was like, I don't know, man. And then like, once it all came together and then the E, I'm like, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, the guy that helped me develop the whole concept's the guy that both Brendan and I grew up with, Andy Rosenthal. And he's a designer, really, really intelligent, smart dude. He does a lot of, if I didn't know him, I couldn't afford him kind of thing. He does work for Nike and Red Bull and Giant Bicycles and all kind of stuff. So I pinged him just like bro to bro to say, hey, man, like, this is what I want. I want this esoteric thing, but I just don't know what to call it, And he was like, let me mill on it for a little bit, see what I can come up with. And then he basically threw that at me. He's like, he found the backwards Z somehow, probably like 30 pages deep in Wikipedia. And was like, as a designer, I think he was drawn to the logo first. Like, oh, that's like, that's unforgettable and like a cool logo mark.
Yeah.
What does it mean? And then when he found out what it means, he was like, dude, that's it. And like went and built this whole thing out. I remember he like told me the whole thing on the phone. I was like,
I don't know.
What was it again? Who does not wear?
He's like, bro, I've worked for Nike. Listen, listen to what I'm saying.
But that was like to touch back on what Brendan said. It was like that was his whole thing. It was like he kept going, dude, it doesn't even matter. He's like, why are we even having this conversation? He's like, once the beer's there and people are drinking the beer and they come to the tasting room and see what you're doing, he's like, it doesn't matter what it's called.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, but the one thing that does matter is you need a very stark, unforgettable logo mark, like a Nike swoosh.
Yep.
You know, and he's like, then it's irrelevant. And that took a lot for me. And even I kind of did that work and I still couldn't even like, I'm like, it's such a mouthful. You know, I told my mom, she's like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, God. All
right.
And then, sort of ironically, it took us a long time to build the brewery out. And I milled on it. I milled on this There Does Not Exist thing for like a year.
Okay. That's not the kind of thing you want to mill on for too long.
And then it was like, it was down to the wire. I'm like, well, if it's not this, I'm fucked.
Right.
Because I don't have anything else, you know? So then it was like so close to finally like the culmination of 2 years of work. I'm like, whatever. Let's just call it There Does Not Exist, you know?
Really?
And I
so you
liked
just kind of
everything
gave in
about
a
it,
bit. Yeah.
except it seemed to be hard for people to remember.
It's so,
It's just like, it's a hard thing, especially,
not anymore.
Not to broad stroke, but like older people, especially. I find like, you know, kind of younger hipster people, like no problem.
They're all about it. Yeah.
Yeah. My dad, he probably still doesn't know what it's called.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Backwards E.
Yeah.
You might know my kids. This is the brewery.
Well, and I think, you know, not to be minimized here is the fact that the acronym like works. Because if it was like TDDSQ or whatever,
right? But TDNE,
TDNE rolls, and so having the acronym roll, I think, was an important part of that puzzle too.
And that was another Andy thing because he was like, we started referring to ourselves as TDNE kind of early, I guess.
Okay.
Because he was like, cut him off, dude. He's like, if you don't. Could be anything, not just our brewery. He was like, if you don't like push the narrative and what you want to be referred to, then and you leave it up to everybody, he's like, they're gonna come up with some wacky thing and you're just gonna drive you insane.
Yeah.
So he's like, at least you can try and guide them. People are gonna do what they're gonna do, but he's like, try and guide them in the right direction.
So I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit similar to you, and I'm a little bit opposite of that advice. When we first started carrying it at the Hop Grenade, I was like, that's fucking stupid name. And I saw the cans and I was like, those are stupid cans. No, I didn't do that, but I'll tell you what I do think is stupid about the cans in a minute. But I didn't like There Does Not Exist, and now I really like it. And I don't like using the acronym. I will use it if I'm feeling lazy that day, or if I'm writing you an email.
Well, it's more. It's
but
more of
I
a
actually now love There Does Not Exist. And to me, it has taken on a meaning of its own. Also, by the way, I wouldn't have thought about it this much if I didn't like the beer. So everybody was always right that if the beer is good and the packaging is cool and the logo is cool, the rest isn't going to matter.
Sure.
But it did start to, it made me think about it more. Because at first I didn't think about it. I just, well, okay, cool, another dumb name. Moving on. But now I actually spent time thinking about it. And the more I thought about it, the more I like it, just as it is.
I think, I mean, I usually don't refer to it as TDNE either.
Yeah.
Like, I like it now as the whole
The acronym is where you go, right?
Yeah,
hey, do you want to go over to TDNE?
Sure.
If I'm talking
sense.
If I'm talking to someone, it's like, have you had There Does Not Exist?
Right.
There you go. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Like even Beardy. So Beardy wasn't familiar with the brand either. And I when he asked where we're going, that no acronym, There Does Not Exist.
Yeah.
Right.
So. And one thing that I think is interesting on the cans in the discussion is like brewing company or brewery is never included.
Yeah. No.
Which fucked me up for this podcast, by the way, because in the early days I would never pay attention to whether it was beer company or brewing company, and Tasty used to get pissed off at me. He'd be like, "Dude, just do a little homework, bro." And so I started doing that. And today I was like, "Oh shit, I don't know if it's beer company or brewery or
neither,
what."
Man.
It's just nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was like sort
it
of
doesn't exist.
Partially driven.
Wow.
Like, that was partially driven by Andy too, to be honest, because he was like, and again, really intelligent, kind of like forward-thinking guy. He's like, don't get me wrong, man. Like, the beer thing's cool and all, but like, what if this? The other brand he referred to that loved it or hated is like Supreme.
Okay.
So he's like, as a branding guy, is like super enamored with Supreme.
Okay.
So he was like, dude, I mean, beer is cool and all, but like, that might not even be the end all. You might find you make so much money making T-shirts that who cares about the beer? I mean, obviously that's not what we do, but he was just thinking about it in that way.
As you should, a good brand. When we adopted the Hop Grenade logo, I felt the same way. Even though it's very beer centric, I was like, you can't do anything without a solid logo.
Sure.
Anything can happen from there.
Yeah,
basically.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the whole idea was like, let's keep it very mysterious and open and esoteric. And I think we do that with the artwork. It was like, and to touch a little bit on the artwork, like the designer that we linked up with, a guy from Indonesia, just a pen and ink artist that I just reached out to via Instagram. I'd been following him for years before the brewery.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, I'm doing this beer project. Like, if you're interested, cool. If not, no harm, no foul. And he was super into it. So we've used essentially him for like 99% of the stuff we've done.
What's the 1%? I want to know.
So his buddy from Indonesia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was like, wait, hold on.
Yeah, there was like a buddy of his. There was one thing where he I can't remember how, I think it came up in my Instagram feed and I was like, this shit is sick too.
Yeah.
So I pinged him and he was like, oh yeah, I'm like iBay's best buddy, the guy that does our stuff. I'm like, you guys got to figure it out. I don't know.
So the artwork's gorgeous. So now I should clarify, since I've been teasing it and half making fun of you the whole show for it. The cans are beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm just lazy and half blind. So when I see them in my beer cooler at the Hop Grenade, I have trouble figuring out which beer is which, because we often carry like 4 of yours at a time. We'll have 3-4 different brands, and I'm like, I don't know. It's the one that doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
That's the brewery that you should pick right now.
Yeah.
Because you have to twist the can around and it's sort of on the side.
Yeah.
And then I'll find out what beer it is. I'm not being inaccurate, right?
No,
about that.
Not
Okay.
at all. I think there's 2 things about our cans that
Ignorant is the word you're looking
Ignorant,
for.
yes.
Ignorant.
I can't say that.
Yeah.
No, I think that the funny thing, again, it's like, it's funny coming from my buddy Andy, who's a branding guy, but like,
right.
I think any business person, we did 2 things. Our branding is like the smallest thing on the can.
It is, yeah.
It's like the art was just so epic that we were like, dude, it's doing our artists a disservice to not just plaster that huge on the can.
Totally.
And then Andy was like, dude, I mean, again, like let the beer speak for itself. Like who cares? You don't need to like push it down somebody's throat that this is their design, this beer. So he was like, just make it like, isn't it metal just to like be the smallest thing on there?
It really is.
And you're not the only one, because all of them are themed sort of the same. It's sort of this dark, esoteric.
So that's true. I know. That's why I say sometimes I'm like, I don't know, just look for the one that you can't find the name.
Yeah.
Because they all are similar, and they're black and white.
Totally.
And so you're right. The brand itself still speaks by that uniformity.
Sure. Yeah. And again, this is like, I hate to keep harping back on the Andy thing, but like I wear a black t-shirt every day.
Yeah.
So we were like looking at it. He's like, here's how I'm seeing it, man. We either go like hyper fluorescent, which seems to ironically kind of be in favor now.
Yeah.
Of like safety pinks and yellows and stuff. He's like, or it's just like no color ever.
Right.
And I was like, the no color thing just speaks way more true to me.
Sure.
So like, that's what I want.
If you got to represent your own brand.
Yeah.
Might
I'm like,
as well.
if we have pink t-shirts, no offense to a pink t-shirt, I'll never wear one.
Yeah. They're like,
I'm like Jerry Garcia, dude, black t-shirt every day.
Yeah.
So I think in this unintentional roundabout way, when you carry 3 or 4 of our beers, thank you, and they're in a row, it stands out more than you would expect for a brand that has no color.
Oh yeah,
because everything else on the shelf is like fluorescent pink and yellow now. So it's like, oh, what is that? And then I think Andy knew this. I was dumb, so I didn't realize it. But like having the art mega big, it makes people grab it.
Yeah,
and then they look at it. And I think our beer is good. So I'm not feel like I'm shorting anybody on this, but I do think we get a lot of. I'm not like naive to the fact that maybe there's a lot of impulse buy.
Sure,
but you only get that once.
Right.
And then, so it's like the beer's got to be good, but like I'll take an impulse buy any day of the week.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Do that because branding is super important. Winemakers know it.
Totally.
Beer makers know it now, finally.
Right.
But you're right. If the beer's not good after that, then they're like, cool, well, I got this good can. Never buying that again.
Fool me once.
So,
right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and I think, it, as soon as you grab it, it is easy to see what the beer's name is, what the style is, or what the alcohol is.
Yep, it's just not plastered on the
totally.
can.
Right. I'm thinking back to the.
And now that it's in my hand, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went way
Well,
back
that
and
too.
forth too
Yeah.
with like because it doesn't say, aside from the website, it doesn't say there does not exist on the can. And that was intentional in the fact that
It's
like,
got the E, bro.
like Andy was like, you don't want people to like land on the name. You want them to land on the E.
Mm.
So he was like,
Mm.
I know it sounds crazy. And like any business person would tell you, any, business college professor would tell you
Counterintuitive. Yeah.
otherwise,
Yeah.
don't put your name on it.
Amazing.
He's like, I'm just saying put the E on it. And that's all you need.
And it's been working.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We only been around for
We're selling
3.5
beer.
years.
It's fucking working. I see that E everywhere
Yeah.
all over this town.
Right? Yeah.
Everybody that sees me whenever I'm wearing the shirt, people are always like, "Is that Bitcoin, dude?"
Oh, no.
And I'm always like, "No, I wish."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. Let's take another quick break. I think we've got another Pilsner to try, and then look, I can't do a whole show without a hoppy beer. So we're gonna do a Pilsner from There Does Not Exist, and then we're gonna have some Liquid Gravity hoppy beer of my choosing, Brendan.
No.
So
No,
pale
okay,
ale.
That's fair.
No.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, hang in there. You're listening to The Session, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to The Session. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We're still at Liquid Gravity Brewing, and we are talking to There Does Not Exist. We were talking a bunch off the air, too. I always threaten to record our off-air conversations, not because we were saying anything controversial, but because they're so good. And listeners are always like, yeah, that's the stuff we want to hear.
This show would have been 3 hours, just like the session
Yeah.
used
Just
to
like
be.
the session
had
used
we
to be.
recorded it all.
Yeah, the breaks. One of these days, I'll actually just put a little mic in the middle. The audio won't be
Yeah.
great, but you'll still get to just hear us bullshitting about all of the things that happen as you're growing a brewery and building a brand.
I played the fifth.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, last beer from There Does Not Exist in our glass before we have a hoppy
Wait,
beer from
hold on.
Brendan. It's right in front of you, man. We
Yeah.
didn't
Okay.
jip you.
All right, relax.
Um,
I tell you to relax. I freak out and then tell you to relax.
Yeah.
You're right. It's my
I'm
fault. I'm
gaslighting you.
sorry.
I'm
Yeah.
gaslighting
It's
you.
fiending over here.
Yeah.
that's what I bought Beardy back for. It's so easy to gaslight. Just have him with
Wait,
us.
I am?
Stop yelling at me, Beardy.
I'm so sorry.
So now we've got There Does Not Exist Pilsner. Probably has a name that's not that.
It's called Mitt Pills. MITTPILS.
Tell us about
It's a great college.
Mitt Pills.
MIT-T-O.
Just
MIT. Extra T.
Brendan never went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my alma mater. Yeah. Ish.
Yeah, tell us about the beer.
So Mitt Pills is a South German Bavarian style Pilsner beer. Pretty classic, I would say. Again, boiled Weyermann Pilsner malt, Hallertau Mittelfrüh and Hallertau Tradition. This beer was the concept was originally with me and Matt. It was Matt Bredilson, the first lager beer that we brewed at There Does Not Exist, which I think was like the third or fourth beer we ever brewed, period.
Okay.
When we were just getting rolling.
Yeah.
And I knew, again, this is like kind of funny stuff to talk about now, but it was like breweries are for-profit businesses, right? So you make whatever sells.
Allegedly.
But
Wait, what?
yeah.
Somebody tell Brendan.
What?
It's a myth, yeah. So I knew in my heart of hearts, I was like, I want to make a lot of lager beer, but we had to figure out prove the concept, see if we could do it. But so I called in a favor to Matt. It's like, hey, can I get some lager yeast? And he's like, yeah, what do you got going on? I'm like, well, we're thinking about making a Pilsner. He's like, well, don't leave me out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we kind of came up with this idea. He had some choice Mittelfrüh sent to him for, I think it was a Mario over at IGN. Great guy, great hops. So, and it was like a sample. So I think he had 22 or 33 pounds or something like that. And it was like not enough for Firestone. It rubbed really nice. So he was like, oh, I got this Mittelfrüh, and they have a ton of traditions. So he's like, we should think about using this. This stuff's pretty nice. So it was like a way it actually was like the perfect sort of confluence of like Mittelfrüh being one of my favorite, if not my favorite continental hop.
Mhm.
And him having great Mittelfrüh that I didn't have access to at the time.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh, let's just do like a big Mittelfrüh bomb Pilsner. So it's the only thing untraditional I would say about it. It's fermented. We use Augustiner yeast for our house lager yeast. That's probably something I should have said.
God.
Yeah.
naturally carbonated, but it's dry hopped.
You say naturally carbonated?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. And all the beers are
Spun
filtered.
it and that's it? I was going to ask you actually if you filter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're
But
looking pretty.
they're all
pretty
diatomaceous or
polished and
filtered.
wonderfully.
Yeah. Again, not to segue away from this stuff like we keep doing because me and Brendan can talk forever,
That's
but I ran clarification at Firestone for a long time. So when I finally was kind of making my exit, I was like, never going to see one of these things again.
Centrifuge.
No, the diatomaceous
a
are
filter.
filtered.
Oh,
like a
that's what
DE
you had there
filter.
too.
Like
yeah,
the Bell
okay.
filter.
Yeah, this is like way back in the day. Now they have all the cool
Okay.
stuff. So I was like, I'm like, see that thing in hell. Never
Yeah.
again. And this was like at peak hazy IPA popularity too, I felt like. So, and then we started making a lot of lager beer after the first iteration of this was not filtered. It was just fined. And that was like the only thing irking me about the lager beer was like, I just want the clarity that you get when you get a Helles or a Pilsner in a German beer garden. And then the only good thing about a filter, to be totally honest with you, is that not a lot of people know how to use them and they're cheap for that reason.
Okay.
So I picked up a filter for cheap. So
I've
we
got
filter.
one if you want it.
I don't need two.
Yeah.
Like a hole in my head or something. So that was like the last thing. I was like, all right, we got to filter them to get brilliant clarity. But this beer, similar to, what people are referring as like Italian style Pilsner or something like that, has a 0.5 pound per barrel dry hop, or less. We've kind of towed around from that, like, 0.3 to 0.5 pound per barrel dry hop of middle fruit also.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
I think
delicious.
It works really well if you have good middle fruit. And if middle fruit it's tough. It's one of those old landrace varieties that this year in particular suffered a really bad harvest. So we were only able to get like a very small amount compared to what I would love to have gotten, kind of thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that with this year's harvests. Were you able to? Your supply is getting cut, which would affect how much of this beer you're going to be able to make.
Yeah, and we don't make we kind of rotate. Our brewery is nowadays it's our lager beer production is way up, and again, like one of those cool things that I hoped we could do, but at the end of the day, you got to sell the beer. But we've found that I think this area in particular has a really strong thirst for just quaffable light lager beer, and some stuff with flavor that's not macro beer.
Mostly me.
yeah. Brendan
Going
like 90%
everywhere.
of the
Wherever
show
Max
making
sells, I
noise.
just go and drink the shit out of it.
Yeah.
So we've been I feel just super lucky to be able to even make these style beers, and also it's corresponding with the sort of craft lager resurgence in the United States.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, pinch me, I get to make Pilsner. Like, that's cool. That's not a reality. I thought I was going to have to make hazy IPA all day long every day.
Right. Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Well,
Yeah.
Have you made one yet?
Yo, God,
No,
he
we
makes
do.
a bunch.
Oh, okay.
We do
Yeah.
make a bunch of them, and
okay.
I'm not throwing shade in any way, shape, or form. But like, I just feel lucky to make some of these beers that I'm like a little more passionate about.
Well, brewers drink lagers. That's
Totally.
I don't know a brewer that's not a lagerhead. I really don't. Not one that's worth anything. I'm serious.
So
Like,
some.
I'm not going to disagree. Yeah, right.
Hey, I'll plead the fifth too. But yeah, I mean, everybody gets into the game with these big flavorful beers. It's what draws you to it, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be IPAs or big stouts or whatever, it's it's this chase of flavors. Like, oh my god! And then you get in the industry and you go to these events and you're at the whatever conference and it's beer at 9 a.m. and then everybody it goes all day and all sometimes late into the night, and it's just feed me Pilsners all day in those scenarios. And so if I think every brewer I know that has an affinity for lagers, and that's why every brewer that kind of has we all walk in. First thing I said to Justin and Beardy when you guys got here, I was like, "You guys want a beer?" They said, "Of course." I said, "Do you want something like hoppy or lagery?" I think at the same time you both said lager. Okay, I got you.
Yeah,
Yeah. Get us there first.
yeah.
Mhm.
All
I
right.
think the coolest thing about lager is like, or at least I should say,
Fermentation
what
temp?
I love. Yeah, that too.
In Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Wait, Fahrenheit?
I'm out.
I don't speak this. What do you mean? Like 8C, right?
Right. I think.
No, I think what I really love about it is, I love to drink them, right? And I love the styles, but like, I love that I'm not reinventing the wheel. It's like there's a very specific way to make these.
Yeah.
And
There's a target,
and I
yeah.
know if we fuck, like at the end of the day, we make them and I try them and I'm like, fuck that up.
Right.
Kind of thing. Whereas there's creativity. I'm not like trying to say that, but like in a way there is no creativity. And that's what I really enjoy about
Well,
it.
there's a blueprint that's very even
For
easy-
success.
It's a blueprint for success.
Yeah.
And then you get to mess around within that blueprint. Right?
Yeah,
So,
totally. So I kind of love that we're making these classic styles. I think it was actually Matt that originally, like, probably over a couple beers, said to me, like, good brewers learn the classics and then like riff on those.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
bad brewers just like
I totally agree with that.
just like riff, like, oh, I'm gonna like throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. It's like the good brewers learn the classics and appreciate the classics, and then once they've accomplished the ability to understand those or make those or whatever, then they sort of make their mark on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always took that to heart from the early days.
When I see new breweries open up and it's just, double hazies, triple hazies, and fruited smoothie seltzer, everything's, it's like, and I haven't had a clean pale ale from you. I've never had like a clean Pilsner from you. It's like,
Not going to do it.
Yeah.
And, it's like, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in there that's like probably a bunch of sugar and, or whatever. But it's like, if you peel it back, it's like, oh, they made a Pilsner. It's like, that's not very good.
Yeah.
So I definitely think there's something to that.
Yeah,
You learn the mechanics. Yeah.
Totally. I don't like to say this, but like, and I don't really believe it, to be totally honest, but like what I hear a lot of people say is like, if you want to like know a brewery's, kind of their ability to make high quality product, like go to a Pilsner first.
Yeah.
Start there.
100%.
And I don't like saying that because I've always been surprised at people's ability to blow my mind in some weird way, shape, or form. So like I try to go everywhere with like totally open minded.
Yeah.
I think if I go somewhere and I have a great Pilsner at a brewery, I'm like, these dudes fucking know what's up.
It's a litmus test.
And you're at the very least, you're certain that everything else on the beer menu is going to be good because you just selected the most difficult beer to brew well, to brew clean, you can't hide behind. So if that one's good, you're like, all right, I don't even have to taste the other 7. I'm pretty sure that pale ale's good, that IPA is good, that stout's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a way. Or I'm like, you guys should stop making hazy IPA and like focus on making lagers.
That's fair. Yeah,
because I'm like, maybe their IPAs aren't great for my palate, but their lager beer is good. And so I'm like, you guys know what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, and you obviously are like accomplished, like learned brewers. But maybe again, to circle back, like unfortunately at times the brewing business is a for-profit business. So you get guided by keeping the lights on.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Well, it's a perfect segue because I want to, if you pour some hoppy beer, we're going to talk about that in a second. But
Speaking
before we
of making
do,
money.
I have one last branding topic for you.
Yep.
And
I'm all over
it actually is a topic that we spoke about at the break, and I wanted to bring it back. And that is, so you have a beautiful tasting room. I've been there.
Thank you.
I love it. In a nondescript area, not far from here.
Yeah.
But
good luck finding it.
you don't have
No,
a
just kidding.
sign on the building even.
No.
And I wonder if you could just tell us the real story again, because it was an accident, but has somehow turned out to be perfect.
Yeah, totally. It wasn't the intention wasn't to be like a speakeasy, and we're not that.
Yeah.
But the ironic thing was that we had $0
Left.
to when we opened the brewery. Like finally, it took us a long time to get to do the build out and get everything together. And one of the first customers, I wish I had known his name, and I've seen him a couple times since, but I've just never really been able to connect him and tell him this story.
Yeah.
But he kind of walked through the doors, sat down, had a couple beers. I think he liked what he tasted. And he's like, dude, I love it, man. There does not exist. No sign. That's awesome. And I'm like, I was just like,
You're like, you just saved me a bunch of money.
that's exactly what I told him. I said, bro, you just saved me a bunch of money.
Because
Meta as fuck.
because you really were gonna still planning to get a sign.
We had a permit from the city to put a big ass backwards E with the slash on the building, and I just scrapped the whole
And then
thing.
you're like, no, it's brilliant.
And then it was like, well, if we're not gonna put a sign, like, Why do we need our operating hours? No, fuck it.
We're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Because there does not
The
exist.
only people that hate us for that are truck drivers.
That makes sense. Oh, yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, well,
take the
fuck
address
them.
off too. Forget it.
So
They
in other
can't
words,
even find my side door around for deliveries. Fuck those guys.
you're not worried about
Yeah.
that.
There's another door beside the side door.
Oh, there always is.
So if you or somebody's not standing behind the bar that you can look through the window and see, there does not exist. There is no hours. There is no sign.
Just don't even come. No, I'm always there. That's the trick, actually,
always there.
is
Yeah.
that because I own a brewery, I'm there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you
Well,
can actually
Max
come get a beer
exists.
any day.
Yeah, Max does exist.
Do you have a life outside of brewing? There does not exist.
Yeah, exactly. That's what my wife would say.
Right. Yeah. If you ever did a anniversary beer, maybe a beer for your wife or something, it would be like, we exist. There does
yeah,
not.
free
but,
time.
But we.
I hope my kid doesn't say dad does not exist. You know, that's
awesome.
Yeah.
That's happening.
Yeah.
Right when he's old enough and clever enough to say it.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
Dad.
Yeah, luckily he's only a year old, so he doesn't
My
even
kids
know.
say that, and they don't even know your brewery.
Yeah.
I'm going to get him some shirts.
Yeah.
All right, Brendo, what'd you pour us here?
We're just whipping pillow tops of
Oh, dude.
a
Gotta
100.
DM that, dude.
Is that the foam at the top, whipping pillow top?
Well, that's Max's verbiage on his.
I'm drinking out of a liquid gravity glass. I love the shape of these, by the way. And then it must be a taproom glass because on the back it just says, "Please don't steal this glass."
Which, ironically,
It probably
leads
does the
everybody to fucking steal them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It was like, oh, it'll be funny, and people will understand the struggle of a small business. No,
It didn't
they
work
just think
that
it's
way.
hilarious, and now they steal them all.
Right.
Which is fine because
Still branding, I guess.
yeah, I guess.
Marketing.
It's still I'd still appreciate if they didn't. So if you're listening, don't come in and
Don't
steal
steal the
this
glass. We don't have hop grenades on our glass, which look great on a glass, by the way. For that
Well,
reason.
so we actually when we first did our first run of glasses, we did not logo them. We didn't brand them at all. For that reason, I don't want people to take them.
Yeah.
And I don't. It was the company we were working with. They came back with the next time we went to go run. They go, "Oh, you have to put something on." And I went, "What? Like you won't run them blank?" And they said, "No. We actually were required to pick something."
That's interesting.
And so, I didn't push very hard because it sounds very weird to me now
Yeah.
to like say that, but that was the answer we got from that company at that time.
Okay.
And I was like, but I really liked the glass shape, and so
This is
Yeah.
a cool shape. I was
Yeah.
going to ask about it.
so I was like, well,
hourglass.
do we just put a dot on it? And I was like, God, that's weird. I was like, well, no, just I guess put the logo and just on the back, we'll ask them nicely not to steal it.
Okay.
That's funny.
It didn't work out quite the way that I was hoping.
Well, I would love to know, will you order a batch without the do not steal and then count what gets stolen more?
Yeah.
I would love to know. The next time
I
you have
think
to
we
order
could do
glasses,
that.
just give it a shot. I'm just,
Yeah. Well,
as
no,
a
we
bar
still
owner,
have-
I'm curious.
we still have a lot of the round one glassware in circulation.
Okay.
That are blank.
Yeah, so we do have some blanks in there.
Have you tried not asking nicely?
Don't steal
Don't
this
fucking steal this glass.
Yeah. I'm just trying to make it out here. They're taking food off my kid's plate.
Yeah.
You monster.
You're why my kid won't go to school.
Yeah, that's
Just put a picture of your kid crying on the glass.
again though. People are gonna be like, "That's fucking rad." I'm
Yeah.
definitely taking
Taking
that.
that. I got to
make your
shit.
kid
Yeah,
cry.
fuck that guy. Yeah.
Oh, man. Fuck that guy, pills.
Fuck that guy right in the mid pills.
Yeah.
Our half pour glass is like a traditional Kolsch, 0.2 liter Kolsch glass.
Yeah.
And the first time we ordered those, I think we got 600 or 500 of them. And we, after like 3 months of being open,
They're
we
branded though,
had-
right?
They are branded.
With
Yeah,
the E.
they're sick.
That-
I mean,
that's
I'm
where
not,
you fucked up.
yeah, exactly. No, totally, dude. We had,
I've got a couple.
we had like,
No, I don't.
I don't know. Dude, it's like the town bicycle. Everybody's got one of those glasses, dude. Jeez, you kidding me?
Max is like, I would have given them to you, dude.
It's not as fun.
I like roll over to people's houses. They got those glasses. I'm like, dude, we didn't sell those for a long time. You know?
Oh,
No, seriously, we bought I think 600 glasses, and after 3 months of being open, there was like 37 left.
Wow.
It was
Seriously?
crazy,
And
like
I-
the shrinkage.
that's
Yeah.
wow.
They break really easy, so it's not like that many got
Nah, you
stolen.
didn't
Wow.
break.
Exactly. Yeah,
Not gonna do that,
500.
yeah.
yeah. You haven't seen me when I get mad.
I've had this conversation with people, like literally, because they're like, "Oh, dude, that's hilarious! Please don't steal this glass." And they're like, "I'm gonna steal this." I'm like,
Right.
"Dude," and people legitimately they go, "Well, dude, I spend a bunch of money here."
Yeah.
I'm like, where does that play? Like, do you go?
You do it at Target
do
too.
you go into Vons?
Yeah.
and be like, I spend a bunch of money here. This gallon of milk's
Yeah.
mine.
Right.
This
Like,
card is
Spend a
pretty
bunch of
sick.
money at this bank.
Although our one of our pumps is on a shopping cart. It was there. Hold on, it was there before we bought this brewery as is, and it looks like it was in some weird way it was supposed to have a pump on it because there's like a way to wrap the cord around it. I'm like somebody designed a shopping cart for a pump. Yeah. That's my story. That's my story.
Right.
We're designed for pumps.
Yeah.
And then grocery
Yeah, they
stores
backed it out.
actually
Yeah.
adopt
Oh.
They reverse engineered it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly it.
Okay.
All right. Tell us about the beer in our glass, Brendan.
Well, this beer right here is a 100% mosaic hopped, double dry hopped West Coast IPA. 6.5%. Nothing but it's just raw 2-row and some corn sugar and acid malt. This is one of my favorite beers. This is kind of we use that 2-row and corn sugar kind of as our sort of base one-off West Coast IPA recipe. Just leave all the specialty malt out. There are no hops at the beginning of the boil. There are no hops really throughout the boil at all. We'll cool the whirlpool down to about 185 and do about 1 pound per barrel. And then we'll dry hop it right above terminal and then wait a day and then do it again. Usually in that kind of 3.3 to 4.4 pounds per barrel range, depending on how I'm feeling.
For each
Depending
of
where
those?
the bank account's
Or
at.
total draw?
Total overall, yeah. Total
yeah,
overall.
okay.
4.4 at each. What do you think we're Green Cheek or something?
yeah.
Somebody told me Monkish. We were right next to him at the Invitational. They actually dropped some beers off. Somebody told me they were like at 14 pounds per barrel or something. I'm like, is that just the narrative that they're saying to get us all to go out of business? Like that's crazy.
Sounds very Henry.
Yeah,
Just try it. That's
yeah.
it's a coup.
I remember the days when he had the no IPAs sign. in
I
his
hope they
tasting
still have
room.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, do they?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
Probably.
I'm sure it's somewhere.
They should.
Yeah.
Somebody probably stole it.
Yeah, that's probably true. Please don't steal this
no
sign.
IPA sign.
Yeah.
So there's no bittering additions.
Uh-uh.
All the IBUs are just from the whirlpool.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah,
What is-
but it's
bitterness does not exist.
Yeah.
Oh.
But well, I mean, even on
Right.
even on the beers that we do bitter, we throw on our liquid gravity IPA. There's I think a pound and a half at boil start, and then there's 1 pound at 10 minutes, and then there's about a pound per barrel in the whirlpool.
Have you measured the IBUs in this?
Not on this beer, but so it's when we do, because we put IBUs on our menu board,
Okay.
and I always just say what I think it tastes like, because to me that's the most important thing, right?
Mhm.
You're just trying to communicate to the customer how bitter it's going to taste.
Sure.
And so it's almost less important what it specs out in a lab,
Mhm.
and it's certainly less important what your whatever software you're using. Says.
Sure. Right.
This is when I was at Firestone. This was one of the kind of first eye-opening moments. I was like, I guess I never really thought about what an IBU actually is. Right? It's milligrams per liter of isomerized alpha acid,
Mhm.
and so there's a calculation, right? And I remember with Beersmith, it's you just plug it in. Oh, is it Rager or Tinsith? Or all they're doing is telling you what your kettle utilization is at any given time.
Mhm.
So if you say 10 minutes, right, one of those formulas says you get 18% utilization. One of them, I remember I saw Dustin Krause, the head brewer underneath Matt at Firestone. He had in his little notebook this convert pounds to grams, multiply by the alpha acid, work this long equation. I was like, oh shit, that's what an IBU is, right? And once I understood that, so I built my own spreadsheet on our recipe sheets. It's actually on like sheet 2, and it'll like kind of call back to the cell on sheet 2 that I built. But it's all it is like, how many pounds they're going in, what the alpha acid is, and what the utilization rate is, right? And depending on whatever time it's going in, you have to determine your own system's utilization rate, though.
Well, and especially when it comes to the whirlpool, that was left out
it's because it would always say, "Oh, that's 0,"
right?
Because the time was 0, and so all of a sudden your equation's zeroed out, and it's like, well, that's not true. And I think and I think the bigger systems get, you tend to get better utilization out of them. I think 33% is basically max utilization, and so if we boil it for 60 minutes, we assume 33%. As we get closer to the end of boil, I think our 10-minute, I assume somewhere around I'd have to look, I think it's 18 to 20%. And then in the whirlpool, I assume, I think it's 17%. And if it's, if we cool down the whirlpool to 185, I think it's 13 or 14%. And, and again, I was coming up with these numbers based on what I'm tasting. And at some point I had Dustin run some numbers for me in the lab, and I was like, oh shit, I'm really close. I think I had our old pale ale at the last place I was at ran. I think I had it at about 48, and I think came back at 44 or something like that. I was like, okay, so I'm not going to overthink this. If it tastes like this to me, and it allowed me to kind of also say that, okay, these utilization numbers that I'm assuming are pretty close, right? But I think, God, I don't know what this one even is on paper. I think I probably call it 60.
Okay.
on the board.
Sure.
And it's probably pretty close to that on my calculations, but yeah.
Yeah, utilization changes too based on degree Plato. So it's
even
more
right.
Yes.
It affects the solubility.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's always a moving target.
Right.
Hard to keep track of. And I agree with Brendan. It's we know what works for our breweries, and I don't really care what the end number is. I think I would love to know, I've never had them shot, but I would love to know, but it's it's sort of relevant.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. But I think that's why, you get double IPAs and particular triple IPAs, they're always sweet. They always taste sweet.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, dude, it's 100 IBU. I'm like, no, it's not. Did you test it? Mm-hmm. It's not 100 IBU. I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. And obviously alcohol has a contribution and sort of a perception of sweetness and, viscosity to it. You start, that's why it's most of the people that I have their double IPAs, I'm like, oh man, you got the grip. It's they're using hop extract.
Yeah, I got to.
Oftentimes,
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, you know how I'm just a massive fan of Altamont's Juice Above the Clouds. I always talk to you about that beer when I come down here because I'm always trying to pick your brain about why I like it so much.
I love those guys, dude. Those guys are so rad.
It's
They're so much fun, but the beer's so good, and they do a lot of simple beers. That beer is one malt, one hop. Mo Diggity, tell you right now, and that's Juice is a double, I think, maybe a triple. I think it's a double.
Yeah, it's 9. It's a 9.5% double, I think.
Mo Diggity is fast approaching my love of Juice Above the Clouds. And I think Juice is also Mosaic, right? It's I think it's 100% Mosaic, and it's a single malt. So I don't know why it's so good. We've talked about how it's their yeast, we think, too. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if it's this batch or what, but Mo Diggity is approaching my love for Juice Above the Clouds.
Yeah, there's beauty and simplicity. I think that it's even talking about, those Pilsners and lagers. This is sort of the IPA version of that.
Yeah.
It's don't try to get too cute. You don't have to.
Right.
Well, and it's I think Mosaic was kind of a game changer before, Citra and Mosaic and some of these really, Southern Hemisphere hops, some of these really dynamic hops came out. You had to layer to get any, real complexity. And some of these new hops, if you get them that are, grown on the right side of the farm and picked at the right time, you just kind of get out of their way and let them shine. You just don't do anything it's It's like winemaking, right? It's like you always hear winemakers say, just get good grapes and don't fuck it up.
Yep.
And I think with some of these modern hop varieties, it's similar. That's why people are pulling specialty malt out of their IPAs, and they're often just either Pilsner malt based or, Turo and something else to lean the body, whether it be Brewer's Crystals or dextrose. But kind of get out of the way and let those things shine, and try to do everything you can through your dry hop procedures to make sure that the final beer is going to. Max and I often talk about, like, we're looking for that true to bag character, right? We want the final hop character in the beer to showcase the same way it does when you open the bag.
Yeah.
And we've messed around with our kind of dry hopping process to try to get that. A lot of that was getting yeast out beforehand. I found the bigger tanks that I got in, the more important it became to, like, try to get as much yeast as we could out before dry hopping, but not waiting too long. I think having that beer still have a little bit of kind of motion in it is important, but not having the yeast in there. So we actually do a little soft crash. We'll free rise at the end of fermentation, maybe from 67 to just above 70 or so, and sometimes it gets there, sometimes it doesn't. But right when it gets below like 3 Plato, we'll usually do a little like 5-degree crash on it. And we went from getting, maybe 2 or 3 buckets of yeast out to like, 12 to 13 buckets of yeast out that next day.
That's big.
And there was still a little bit of it was still kind of working on the end, and then you hit the dry hop. And so there's a little bit of motion. But there's not all that yeast in there. There's still plenty in suspension to like finish the job of the fermentation, and we do use ALDC also to make sure we don't have diacetyl concerns. But that true to bag character, that elusive true to bag character, was there once we started doing that.
Go ahead.
Do you have any special hardware for adding the hop? For doing the dry hopping? Are you purging a vessel and shooting the hops in, or are they just dumping in through the top?
We dump them in through the top. The only kind of special equipment is that we have a little. I always put up. So we have like 6-inch ports on the tops of the tanks. So I have a little 6-inch to 3-inch reducer, and then there's a valve, like a 3-inch butterfly valve, and then a little 3-inch to 6-inch like cone. And so, as soon as we open the tank, it's positive pressure. So as I'll have someone down at the bottom, someone up at the top. As soon as you kind of call to each other, and as soon as you like get that, make sure the tank's blown down, obviously. But as soon as you get that clamp off, ask for CO2. That way, for the entire time that the tank is open, we're always blasting CO2 through the port. Then we'll put that rig, that dry hop rig, on with the port or with the valve open. Get it set there. And the reason I do that is because I have not had a tank gush on me yet. And I'm even okay saying that without knocking on wood.
Yeah.
Because as long as you use that rig, if something starts to rush at you, you just shut the valve. Now, we definitely have had beers that we dry hop and they're spitting out of the blow off. That's fine.
So you've used the valve. Okay. You just haven't had a gusher.
Well, we'll always do like a small amount of hops to kind of nucleate the CO2. And actually, saw something recently about just blasting CO2 through it to nucleate it instead of like
pre-dry hop.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we always we'll do 5.5 pounds, like half a bag first to, but 5.5 pounds in, close the valve. And then climb down, and sometimes that thing gets angry, man. Sometimes beer comes out, but it's always it's coming out of the blow off tube.
Sure.
But sometimes they get angry, and but after you wait 30 minutes, and you can basically just dump the rest of them in without concern at all. Yeah. And I saw someone, I forget where it was, but talking about just nucleating essentially with CO2. So leaving the valve open and just like blasting. I'm like, oh, that's not a terrible idea, because in my mind, if it does get angry and those hops just climb up the wall and stick to the walls,
they're also not utilized. Yeah,
you're not getting them in solution. But yeah,
killing it. I love it.
Yeah,
I love this
good
beer.
stuff.
Beardy?
Yeah.
Are you a Mo Diggity fan? That's what I want to know.
Mosaic has always been better than Citra to me. So
Yeah.
the more Mosaic there is in the world, I'm a fan.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what's happening. And then also just letting, I love that you're just talking about letting the hop shine, letting the ingredients shine. Ghost Town recently came on the show and talked about how being able to select their own hops sort of changed their world. And of course, they're like winning every medal on the planet right now.
Love those guys too.
And so, yeah, great people and
Their
great beer.
is fucking
Yeah, it's
awesome.
amazing.
It's
just
so good. Dude.
It's so good. But the philosophies that you're
I hate
talking
that
about,
it's
I
that
think
good,
of this.
actually.
Wait a second. I actually don't like them.
Yeah,
so
I
good.
love them, and I hate that their beer is so good because
So good.
every time we make a beer and someone likes it at the brewery, I'm like, it's not Ghost Town.
Ghost Town
do?
does not exist.
Yeah.
So
But hop selection to them, I just wanted to put a fine point on that. And I know not everybody gets to do that. Your Mosaic tastes to me like just a great, like you said, one field can be, one crop can be this, one row can be that. And I think when you're going to let the ingredients shine, it has to be almost perfect. And it has to, it has to taste like the bag or
True to bag.
True to bag. Thank
True
you.
to bag.
That's what it
So what do you do with the
is. True to bag.
what do
Yeah.
you do with the Mosaic that you open up? That's kind of
Well,
Use it
so
outside.
we do have we
Outside.
do have contracted, the same lot for the whole year.
Oh, okay. So you get enough to where you get to select
hmm
the Mosaic. Okay.
We do. In fact, that was kind of one of the models that when we opened up, I had a lot of kind of hit and miss hops,
Yeah.
at the last place I was at, and I went, okay, I'm gonna really just like kind of lean into the big three, kind of the holy trinity of northern, northern America grown hops, Citra, Simcoe, and Mosaic. And I said, I'm going to get to volumes where I can go select those.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then, for all the one-off stuff, like I'll play the game. We'll see if we can get a couple rad boxes of this.
Sure.
See if we can go get a couple. In fact, every time we collab, that's kind of one of the things I go, okay, what hop do you have that you love right now that you have that maybe I don't have?
Okay.
And I'll buy it from him and we'll work that into the beer. But because I think it is so important. I mean, the stuff that we weren't able to do selection for the first, year for sure the first year.
Okay.
And I'm just like on spothops.com and I'm ordering
Yeah.
these hops. I know what I want them to smell like, and I'm opening these bags like, fuck, man,
Yeah.
this ain't it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Some boxes you're like, yes.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
others
and-
like, are you sure?
Yeah, and I remember I think it was spothops.com, and I found one. I was like, oh shit, that's the shit. And I ordered 15 more boxes of it. Just like, I'll take this,
Right.
But that variability it's tough. And so but I'm also I'm putting together that puzzle right now. It's like the data point of I was very comfortable smelling pellet hops and knowing what they do in beer, right? But it's an extra layer to evaluate the core samples
Mhm.
and see what that turns into in the pellets, because they change.
Yep.
It's not like you smell
Yeah.
that core sample and then it's like that's what the pellet smells like.
Hmm.
So it's connecting those dots, but it's like, even though it's like, maybe I'll just try to find the pellets I like and get as much of that as I can. It's like, no, just eat the shit and figure out, put all the pieces together.
Yeah.
Because
When in doubt, eat the shit.
yeah. That's basically,
IPA,
that's our
yeah,
liquid gravity tag.
No, I mean, I'm glad you said that because not the eat the shit part, but no, I've had this really interesting conversation with a couple brewers lately. One of them is my buddy Evan Price from Green Cheek, obviously like one of the greatest brewers, one of the greats for sure, like one of
killing
the, and like the nicest fucking guy. God, I love that guy.
Yeah.
But it's like I have this thing where we've gotten hop samples before, and then you pick what the best whole cone samples that like the bale sample they send you or whatever, and then you get the bag and it's like of pelletized hops and it's different. So like we were just kind of
Are they pulling a bait and switch?
We were just musing on the fact it's like, yeah, like there's nothing cooler than going to Yakima and like spending time up there.
Mm-hmm.
But for my preference, I like picking pellets more because then I'm just like, this is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about that. So it's like, I think, like you were saying, like there's a lot to learning the connection, but like, I don't have the money to learn. So I'm like, I need to know that what I'm buying is great. So like, I actually like have been like when I get pellets for selection, I'm like, thank God. Cause now I know what it is. And like, if we don't, sometimes I say like we contracted for some Simcoe and they were like, oh, do you want us to send you samples? And I'm like, how many lots are there? I'm like, you know what? Just send me pellet samples from each lot. And then I just want to pick what pellets I want. I don't really care to smell the hops before they're pelletized.
Is there an advantage of making your selection based on the core sample versus the pellet?
I don't think so. I think it's
like playing on hard mode, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
It's because you're like, there's people that have been doing this a lot longer than I have that are way better at it. But in my opinion, it's like sometimes you might smell the greatest core sample in the world, but then what that translate after it goes through the pellet die might not be the same.
Totally.
So that's why my preference is sort of picking pellets because then I'm like, it's easier for me to smell a bag of pellets and then know what that's going to come through like in finished beer.
But is the advantage getting to contract it first? Like you're kind of cutting the line if you're willing to make the commitment based on the core sample.
Yeah, I think so. It's, if you're gonna pick from pellets, you're going to pick after everybody's picked core samples.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But because those core samples change so much,
sure,
right?
I guess that's what I'm getting at.
I guess to me it was like, okay, I'm just gonna see it, and I'm lucky that we had Scotty from Balter actually was there with us the second time. The first time we did it, that was group selection, and I was fortunate to be in a really good group. It was like Ian from RIP, who I think actually just left.
I think so.
It was Kelsey from North Park, who's another fantastic brewer. Eric at Kern River.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was some like when
some great brewers
when Kern River, agrees with your citrus selection,
you're in good shape.
Good,
Yeah, they name
it's
beers after it.
And so that was it was really helpful to have kind of get that consensus early on or on my first one, and then when we went and did it on our own, it was like, okay, like I just in my head I'm like, just you may find that this didn't turn out exactly the way you wanted it into pellet, and then or maybe it does, but whatever it is, I guess to me, I wanted to see that data point, right? Yeah. I just wanted to understand it.
Yeah.
Although I'm 100% with Max, though. It's like if you said you got to make one beer, right, for all eternity or whatever, the biggest moment of your life or whatever, right. And you have to pick a core sample or the pellet. I'm picking the pellet.
The pellet,
every time.
Sure. Yeah, every time, because there's less variability, right? Mm-hmm. You're total, but knowing that, well, what if there's only 10 versions of the pellet available? There's maybe 100 cores.
So I
don't know. That's the thing. Right?
That's why I like Beardy's line of questioning. Like, so what's the advantage then? Because I agree. When I was listening to you talk about cores and you talk about pellets, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck a core is going to turn into. I have a hard time even
tying your shoes.
Yes, thank you.
It's how much do you like to gamble?
And I like to gamble a little bit.
Well, but there's so much blending going on during pelletizing, intentional or not. That it's like
that little core. Yeah,
you might pick a core and you're like, oh, I want this, these lots.
Yeah,
and then you might hate the lot that got pelleted right before those.
Sure, yeah.
Right, and inevitably there's some blending. So are you getting stuff on the front end of that, or are you getting the back end where it's more true to character? So there's just a lot to it. I mean, it's making beer is an art. Like picking hops is really an art.
Yeah.
I guess, and to me that part was interesting enough to like let's see what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no confidence in my
Dude,
pick.
But don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that.
I mean, just as you've gotten better, so you've only gotten to go to selection a
We've
couple
done
times.
3,
Okay,
yeah.
3. You get better at it every year, don't you? So isn't it
yeah,
just like
you
brewing,
learn something.
like you start to learn that part of your own sensory, and that hops are like this in this form, and they're going to be like this later. So in other words, you'll gain more confidence about how they'll end up in pellets, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
You hope so.
Yeah, one of the things that I kind of
Right.
one of the
the
things,
goal.
yeah, one of the things that I do that I've noticed now kind of twice is that something about the pelletization process, I think, volatilizes some of the like sulfur compounds
Mhm.
and some hops that like don't have any or very, very low like OG onion garlic kind of hop sulfur will show sometimes after pelletization. But even that, some like the first time we went and actually did selection after the group, it was like I remember getting like almost no OG character, and then they came fresh off the pelletizer. I was like, what the fuck is this? And we had our rep come into town, and I was telling them like, hey, like this ain't what I picked.
Yeah.
And they showed up, and I went and got a bag, and this was like probably 2 months after kind of smelling them and making that decision. That's what I thought about them. And then I opened the bag, I was like, well, that's not nearly as strong as it was like, right when those first like
Oh, yeah.
lots came off too. And so it's like you don't even really understand the full picture like until the end of the year even.
Crazy.
Yeah,
'Cause
because
it's
there's like bag shock too, like
Yeah.
similar to like bottle
Okay.
shock. It's
Sure.
like
Wow, that's a
super-
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like we get great hops from Hollingberry hops, and we did mosaic and citrus selection, and then like I just remember being like so excited to use them, and they showed up, we used them that day, like minutes later. And I'm like, I use these things,
Yeah.
And it's not like the beer was bad; it was just not. I was like, whoa,
Well,
that's not
what
what I thought.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if it was just like my internal palate needed to do it, or my aromatic palate needed to like adjust. But now I love what we picked. But like there was a second where I was like, and it's like, Brendan will speak to this too. It's like, it's a lot of money. Like, it's like hundreds
Right.
of thousands of dollars you're on the hook for. And to go like, I just spent $100,000 on mosaic and I don't love this. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Is a terrifying feeling for me, at least.
Yeah.
I had that
agree.
experience with the start of this tour. I invited Beardy, and then he,
Well, but the difference is you're still regretting it.
right.
Yeah.
Then he arrived,
It hasn't come
Well,
around.
and I'm still.
Right.
So it does
Maybe
come
at the-
around though,
maybe at
Max.
the
Is that
very
what you're
end.
saying?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
at the
There's a
very,
little
very
bit of
end.
RV shock.
Yeah, it's RV shock. I mean, it's day one. So,
Would you say that the beauty
sulfur
is true
will
to
burn-
character though?
oh, it's
Or-
true to character. It is what I guess I thought I was getting into. But I had like what is it called when you have like rose-colored glasses? I have fond memories of Beardy that they're stupid.
I smelled the RV. It smelled true to pack.
The sulfur will burn off as it ages.
Okay, good. Great. Well, we have a long trip ahead of us, so it should get good.
You're
Gentlemen.
welcome.
Brendan, thank you for hosting us at Liquid Gravity. I appreciate you so much all the time. Mo Diggity, I hope you're going to send me away with some because it's fantastic.
I could check in the cooler.
I really just came here for that.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, almost any time you want to come by.
Almost
Yeah.
anytime.
Hey, could I get some beer to go?
Yeah.
Some beardy go.
Beardy
right
go.
here, beer to go.
Max Montgomery from There Does Not Exist. You can go to theredoesnotexist.com and check it out.
Or can you?
Can you see it?
It's actually terribly updated. Our updating does not exist either. It probably still says opening soon.
Your landing page should be 404 error.
Yeah.
Yes. Go check them out there and here or there or wherever you can find
Anywhere.
it. All I know is that we have it at the Hop Grenade often. I can
Yep.
give you that. So I
Yeah.
can vouch for that. And you can always check our website, hopgrenade.com, and find There Does Not Exist there. And all up and down. Are you just in California right now?
Yeah. Just to
Like
California.
Sacramento to San Diego, I think you said, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not, it's not much. We're a small brewery, so we do about 3,500 barrels right now.
I heard they have a tap handle at every Chili's location.
Shit, man.
I would love that.
Drinking good in the neighborhood.
And to counter, you should have one at every Applebee's.
I could go to Mid-Hills with every appetizer sample.
Oh man,
You would
Are you
love
kidding
it.
me?
I would love it.
Dude,
I'd go back to Chili's.
I'd go back to Chili's. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I could die a happy man. Someday.
Well, thank you guys for your time. I promised you a 90-minute show, and I lied. But I think our listeners are going to love it, especially the end there. We got the drunk. It used to be drunk of the week. Now it's like information of the week. So that was great. I'm sure everyone will love it. Hang out with us over the next few weeks. Beardy and I are going to go all the way down to San Diego. We're recording a bunch of shows.
we're gonna try.
We're going to try hard to record a bunch
all
of
that counts.
shows and release them over the next several weeks, even though we're doing it in just about 1 week's time. We're going to a bunch of good places. Thanks to our sponsors. Beersmith was mentioned today. Go to beersmith.com, get your free trial. Wonderful brewing software that most of the pro brewers you've heard on my show either still use or at least started using Beersmith.
Oh, by the way, I know I shit on it for and it's not Beersmith.
You're just the IBU
it's the
calculator.
IBU
calculator.
Yeah, I still use Beersmith.
You're still Beersmith
Yeah,
guy.
for all the grain stuff. Yeah,
Heck
absolutely.
yeah. Go to beersmith.com, get your free 21-day trial. Thanks to our sponsor, More Beer. This show and every session that we do, whether we're at home or on the road, they're our favorite people in the world. They'll be hanging out with us in San Diego.
Oh, great.
Yeah, as always. And all of our wonderful sponsors and you, listeners who donate, thank you for that. We'll see you next time on the session on the road, Beardy's Summer Tour. That's what I'm calling it.
Aw,
It's Beardy's Summer Tour. The last tour he gets, I think.
again.
Yeah, again. Beardy's last stand.
Oh, at least I'm still standing for now.
Thanks, everybody. Take care of yourselves and your beer.